Level 4, we're going to solve using the equation quadratic in form. So I see fractions. Let me get rid of fractions. I'm going to multiply everything by 12, also by x, and by x minus 1. Everything. 12, x, and x minus 1. That is what we used to call our least common multiple. On my first fraction, the x with the x cancel out. So I'm multiplying 1 times 12. And my result, I'm going to multiply with x minus 1. Then I have a plus sign. Then my x minus 1 with my x minus 1 cancel out. I'm going to multiply positive 1 times 12. And my result, I'm going to multiply with x. This is equal to, here the 12 with the 12 cancel out. I'm going to multiply 7 times x. And my result, I'm going to multiply with x minus 1. All right, let me get rid of parentheses. On the first one, let me distribute the 12. So I'm going to get 12x minus 12 plus 12x equals 7x squared minus 7x. The left side can be simplified. If I combine my like terms, I have 24x minus 12 is equal to 7x squared minus 7x. I see where the x squared is positive, and I'm going to move everything to that side. So minus 24x plus 12. So I have that 0 is equal to 7x squared minus 31x plus 12. So now here we got choices. We can solve it by factoring, like the way we know it, or I'm gonna solve this by using the quadratic formula. I know my a is 7, my b is negative 31, and my c is 12. So I remember the quadratic formula. It was a bad boy went to a so-called radical party. The boy lost, for being square, he lost a chance with 4 awesome chicks, and everything was over at 2 a.m. All right, so I'm going to do b squared minus 4 times 7 times 12, and all of this inside a square root. 31 squared, that gives me 961, minus 4 times 7 times 12, that gives me 336. All this inside a square root. I subtract these. 961 minus 336, that gives me 625. I do the square root of that. 625, the square root of it is 25. So now when I use my quadratic formula, I'm going to say negative b. So negative of a negative, I get positive 31 plus or minus 25 over 14. If I use the plus sign, I'm going to go here to the left. If I use the plus sign, 31 plus 25, on the top I have 56 over 14. 56 divided by 14 is 4, so that means that x is equal to 4. Now if I use the minus sign, 31 minus 25, that gives me 6. 6 over 14, at least simplify the fraction. 6 over 14, I'm going to call it 3 over 7. That means that x is equal to 3 over 7. You wanted to solve this by factoring, by all means factored. Now here, this one, I'm going to multiply everything by m squared. So in fact, on my first fraction, my m squared, I'm literally going to write m times m. Right? My least common multiple, my least common denominator is m squared. On the first fraction, 1m with 1m cancel out. So I have 5 times m. Here, the m squared with the m squared cancel out. So I just have a positive 12 equals 2m squared. I'm going to move everything where the m squared is positive. So I'm going to move the 5m to the right. And I'm going to move the negative 12 there. So I have that 0 is equal to 2m squared minus 5m minus 12. I remember the quadratic formula. I'm going to say A equals 2, B equals negative 5, and C equals negative 12. I'm going to use the quadratic formula. So B squared, I have negative 5 all squared minus 4 times 2 times the negative 12, all inside the square root. So I have 25 plus, because a negative with a negative make it positive, 4 times 2 times 12, that gives me 96. 96 plus 25, that gives me 121. And the square root of 121, we know that as 11. All right, so I'm going to use the quadratic formula, the whole thing. Negative b, my b is negative to begin with, so I have positive 5 plus or minus 11 over 4. Now, if I'm going to use the plus sign, I'm going to do my left side. If I'm doing the plus sign, on the top I have 5 plus 11, so that's 16 over 4. So that means my x is equal to 4. If I'm going to use the minus sign, 5 minus 11, on the top I have negative 6 over 4. That means my x is equal to negative 3 over 2. Now here we have a riverboat for tourists, averages 12 miles per hour in still water. It takes the boat 1 hour and 4 minutes to go 6 miles upstream and then return. Find the speed of the current. Because I'm dealing with hours, I'm going to keep everything in hours. If I want to change 1 hour and 4 minutes to minutes, make sure you switch 12 miles per hour to minutes as well. That's going to be a big number. So all I know is that, let me call X the current of the water. All I know is that it's going upstream. The distance, I don't know the distance. I just know it take him 1 hour, 4 minutes for the whole thing. Well, 6 miles up and 6 miles down. So the distance going upstream is 6 miles. The distance going downstream should also be 6 miles. I'm going to say that when it is with the current or when it's upstream, I'm going to call the current X. The strength of the current is X. The boat in still water is 12. So when it's going upstream against the current, I'm going to say the rate is 12 minus X, right? The rate of the boat minus the river. I'm calling the X. Now, when it's going downstream, I'm going to say the rate is 12 plus X because it's the boat plus the current. Now, time, I remember a formula that was distance is equal to rate times time. So I'm going to say, if I divide both sides by r, I'm going to say distance divided by rate is equal to time. I have information about distance and rate. So I'm going to say when it's going upstream, it is going to be 6 over 12 minus x. That's how long it's going to take. When it's going downstream, it's going to be 6 over 12 plus x. All right, so that's the information that I have. All I know is that going upstream, the time that it took to go upstream plus the time that it took to go downstream is equal to 1 hour and 4 minutes. Okay, let's take a look at this. This is basically 1 hour plus 4 out of 60. All right, because 4 minutes is 4 out of 60. So that is basically 1 plus 1 over 15. My 1, let me write that as 15 over 15. That way I have common denominator. So the time it took altogether, it is 16 over 15. So I have that fraction. Okay, so now my least common denominator is going to be 15, 12 minus x, and 12 plus x.